2020 is, to say the least, a pretty disappointing year. It's been a disappointing year for all of us, mostly due to global changes that have taken place, and also for many of us on a personal level. But when we step back and take a look at the broader picture, there's a lot to be said. You see, the reality is not much has happened between 2010 and 2020 that we could say has truly been revolutionary in a way such that our lives have been fundamentally altered. I have to think of the famous Peter Thiel quote from back in the day. They promised us flying cars. They gave us 140 characters. Now, I know that Twitter has upgraded that, I think, to 220. I don't know. I'm not really on Twitter. But the sense and point of the quotation remains. We haven't really done a whole lot that would correspond to some of our wildest dreams and our most fanciful states of optimism. And it's really interesting in the year 2020 because it always seems like there's some form of technology or invention or some major change on the horizon that is going to fundamentally alter everything about the way we live in our world. And it's not actually the case. It's much more the case that we're always on the cusp of something. And what do I mean by this? Well, in the past decade or so, due in large part to social media and the internet and everyone participating, no doubt, but also due to the circumstances that we find ourselves in, we are always thinking and dreaming big, but the big thinking and the big dreams have increasingly very little to do with reality. People will talk about things such as artificial wombs, or genetic engineering, or medical breakthroughs. And, of course, there's always a little bit of progress being made. The one thing that you might want to argue that has been the most progressive in terms of making advances has been the DNA revolution. But even there, not much has really happened that's going to change our lives fundamentally. What we can do there is mostly observational. You can learn things about your DNA. You can, for example, find out about the heinous or joyous future that awaits you down the line as your body and mind withers away due to some heritable disease. But there's not much you can do other than certain preventative measures you can take. And things like the artificial womb, well, that's a long, long, long time away. The reality is that in the current year, we find ourselves in a dilemma. We're on the cusp of so much. It seems that everything is within reach. It seems like we could just reach out to it and we would get it. It reminds me of the Greek myth of Tantalus, whence the term tantalizing comes. This man who was punished by the gods to reach for fruit in a pool, but always without success. It seemed as if he could do it, but he always came a few inches short. He couldn't reach the fruit, but it was always within sight. And this is the feeling I think many of us have these days. Something big is on the horizon. Many big things. But the horizon is poorly defined. What this horizon is not known. And so what we've been doing really is just treading water. And one of the consequences of this, one of the consequences of things that will take decades and decades, and perhaps even a century, if not longer, to truly emerge, to truly come to fruition, whether it's the benefits of the DNA revolution, benefits of medicine, developments in technology and physics, all these things that, if I'm totally frank, the vast majority of us will never see the light of. Well, it fills us with these dreams. It fills us with these desires. We like to talk big. We like to lose ourselves in the macro picture of everything. And the problem with this, as much as I think it's fascinating to talk about the big picture and all the things that might be on the horizon, is that, one, most of us, myself included, don't understand or know enough about these technologies and these details to make really accurate predictions, other than at some point in time it will likely come to pass. But we tend to lose sight of what's in front of our noses. And I talked a little bit about this in my Owlman video. when you get sucked into this abyss of the macroscopic vision that many of us like to entertain online, you do tend to lose sight of what's right in front of you, of what might be good. And as a consequence of losing sight of what is actionable and what is right in front of you, you get lost in the ether of things that never were, and very likely in your lifetime will never be. And it's very understandable. There's a kind of ennui that has come into existence, most prominently in the past decade. Things have ground to a halt. Nothing has really changed much, at least noticeably. We still fly in the same airplanes. Again, you can find out a lot about your genes, but you can't do much about them. So if you have cursed genes, you have cursed genes. You can take some small measures to deal with that, but that's about it. And there are plenty of deadly illnesses that have not yet received a cure, and likely will not for decades to come at the very least. So, the result of this, unfortunately, is a kind of apathetic and largely useless navel gazing, where all the energy of an individual, and specifically an individual man, is projected outwards into the cosmos. The problem is, we don't have a direct influence on the cosmos, nor do we really have a direct influence on the macro picture. This is, of course, one of the reasons why so many people love to talk about and get involved in politics, right? It gives you the false sense that your vote and what you do actually matters or means something. But it almost certainly does not given the current set of circumstances we find ourselves in. And a particular concern is the youth of today, the youngest men out there who have no guidance. Everything is a mess. There's chaos. And what do? Well, these are the people who I have observed tend the most to think outwards and think about the big picture. They get lost in all these things that may never come to pass, or if they do, will take decades and decades, and what's going on in their own lives. Now, of course, I can't give advice. I don't give advice. But I think we've reached a stage now, and certainly within the manosphere, where one can speculate, one can have fantastic ideas and theories about the grand scope of things and society and the world and even the universe. None of that is going to change your present situation, whatever that present situation might be. Now, of course, your situation might be great. You might love your life. It's entirely possible, even likely. But there are plenty of people who don't. And again, I'm not a self-help guy. I'm not a guru. I'm not a coach. And I don't blame anyone. This has nothing to do with fault. But it's possible that we, particularly in the manosphere, have spent so much time whiling away our days in grandiose thoughts that we're missing the forest for the trees. It's interesting because a friend of mine recently asked me what the trick was that I had, how it is that despite all the happenings in the world, those happenings, as opposed to the things in my immediate sphere and circle of my life with friends and family, don't really affect me. That I'm comfortable resigning myself to my impotence in a universe and a world that doesn't care about me and one that I cannot change. And I'm not sure, but I think it has a lot to do with just living life and reaching a point where there's a certain sense of equanimity that you can develop with respect to these things. No, I'm not going to change the world. My vote isn't going to change the world. I'm not going to benefit from some amazing technology down the line. In all likelihood, I'm going to miss out on that stuff. And even the youngest amongst us will not benefit from that for quite some time to come. This is the problem. We've lost sight of our own goals, our own dreams, the things that we can immediately have an impact on. And it might be that a lot of these guys out there have tried all of that. I don't know. Again, I'm not a coach. I don't know or cannot tell you what to do. But I think now, given all the circumstances in 2020, the time for introspection has arrived. The external world is yielding fewer and fewer fruit to us. We're just not benefiting from it. There's nothing revolutionary on the horizon, despite us thinking that. This is the self-reinforcing, on-the-cusp thinking of one day this will happen, or one day this technology will emerge. One day everything will be changed. And then what? Again, far away. And what I've realized having been lost myself in such reverie, is that it's not going to do a whole lot, and that I need to do certain things in my own life to avert that and improve my own life. And by that, I don't mean self-improvement, no. Doing things that are important to you as an individual man, that have value to you. And going back to some of the oldest principles of MGTOW, I think that really hits the nail on the head. Yes, we who have created MGTOW content, we who have thought about these things, myself included, guilty as charged, we've been lost in the reverie. We've been lost in these grand thoughts about everything. And there's nothing wrong with that on occasion. It's just that when you allow yourself to be overwhelmed by this big picture, and when you lose sight of everything in your own life, that's when things start to go awry. If you find yourself, particularly as a young person, falling into that trap, and it is a trap, then I would caution you to turn inwards. Most things exist in a careful equilibrium, and maintaining that equilibrium is important, because when you veer too far, say to the left or the right of this equilibrium, things tend to go topsy-turvy and problems ensue. So I think more than anything, 2020, the ushering in of a new decade, is one in which we have to turn inwards. We have to think, on occasion, less about the big picture, because the big picture is something outside of our reach. And all these things we talk about and dream of, they're probably not going to happen anytime soon, and they may never happen in our lifetime. And that's disappointing, but that's what we have science fiction for. Anyway, please hit the bell icon in case you have not done so in order to be notified of my videos, and subscribe if you've not yet done so as well. And as always, if I'm still alive, I'll check you out later. May the gods watch over you, and take care. Bye-bye. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.